Welcome to the first part of our new chapter, Ray Optics. Today we are going to discuss about the refraction from a single spherical refracting surface. What is a single spherical refracting surface? A refracting surface, which is a part of a sphere, is called a single spherical refracting surface. We have two types of basic refracting surfaces. One is called convex spherical surface, other is called as the concave spherical surface. If the surface is bulging towards the rarer medium, then it is called convex spherical surface. But if it is bulging towards a denser medium, then it will be called as the concave spherical surface. Now let us see about some of the basic terms used about the spherical surface. Here in the first figure, you can see that xy is a portion of the complete sphere which is called as the convex spherical surface. Here xy represents the aperture of the spherical surface. So aperture of a spherical surface is actually the part of the surface which receives the light from the object. P is the point on the spherical surface at which the bulge in the surface is maximum. We call this as the pole of the spherical surface. Because xy spherical surface is actually part of a sphere, so it must have a center. So C is the center of that imaginary sphere of which the convex spherical surface is a part. We call this as the center of curvature. If we pass a line from the pole and the center of curvature, we get principal axis. The distance from pole to the center of curvature is known by the name radius of curvature. So this is the radius of the sphere of which the surface is actually part. In this case, the surface is lying inside the rarer medium having refractive index mu1, and the refractive index of the denser medium of which surface is made up is mu2, and it extend up to the infinity. Similarly, for the concave spherical surface, P is the pole, C is the center of curvature, and distance from pole to the center of curvature is radius of curvature. Here, refractive index of the rarer medium is mu1, while that of denser medium is mu2, and this denser medium is also extending up to the infinity. Now, before we start discussing about the refraction at the spherical surface, we have to learn about few sign conventions, few rules about the signs which we had to take, which must be attached while measuring the distance of the object or that of the image in order to derive the required relation. What are these sign conventions? All the distances are to be made from the pole of the spherical surface. So pole is the point from where we have to start measuring the distances. The distances which are measured in the direction of the incident light are to be taken as positive, and those which are measured in the direction opposite to the direction of incident light are to be taken as positive. For example, in the given figure, for convex spherical surface, if we suppose that light is incident from left to the right, in that case we have to start measuring the distance from the pole. Now if we are measuring the radius of curvature, you can see that for measuring the distance that from pole to the center of curvature, we start from the pole and we also move in the direction of incident light. So in case of convex surface, the radius of curvature of convex surface, it will be indicated with a positive sign. But if we are measuring the radius of curvature of concave spherical surface, in that case our incident light will be moving from left to right, but the radius of curvature of the concave spherical surface will be measured from right to the left, that is opposite to direction of incident light. So in this case, the radius of curvature, it will be labeled with the negative sign. We also use some assumptions to make the derivation easy. First point, the object is actually a point object, not an extended object which is placed on the principal axis. Second, aperture of the spherical surface is very small. Third, the incident ray and the refracted rays, they are making small angle with the principal axis, so that the sine or tangent of these angles can be taken equal to the angle themselves. That means we will take sine theta equivalent to theta and tangent theta equivalent to theta also. We call these as the small angle approximations. So when aperture of the mirror surface is small, in that case object lying close to the pole or to the spherical surface, then the light starting from the object falling on the spherical surface, it will be making very small angle. So under these conditions, sine theta can be taken equivalent to theta and tan theta equivalent to the theta. Now we start discussing an important relation about the refraction at the convex spherical surface when the object is lying in the rarer medium and image is formed in the denser medium. So here you can see the object O, which is lying in the rarer medium. A ray of light starts from the object O and it strikes at the point A, which is the point of incidence. Now C is the center of the curvature of the mirror surface. In this case, if we join center of curvature with the point of incidence, this will act as our normal. So angle measured between the direction of incident light and the normal, it will be called as the angle of incidence. The light going from rarer to denser medium will bend towards the normal and it is going to focus itself at the point I. So I is the image of the object. Here I is the refracted light which is making angle beta with the principal axis. Incident light OA is making angle alpha with the principal axis, whereas the normal CA is making angle gamma with the principal axis. We drop a perpendicular AM from point A onto the principal axis. Here U is the distance of the object from the pole, R is the radius of curvature, V is the distance of the image from the pole of the surface. So with these things, now we can start deriving the relation, which is the relation connecting refractive index mu1, mu2 and object distance u, image distance v with the radius of curvature of the spherical surface. Now because light is traveling from rarer to the denser medium, so here if we use Snell's law, we can write sine I over sine r equal to 1 mu2, or we can write it equal to mu2 over mu1. So light is going from rarer to denser medium. So in this case, refractive index is greater than 1, which we can obtain by dividing the refractive index of mu2 with mu1. Now because angles are very small, so using the assumption sine I can be taken equivalent to I, sine r can be taken equivalent to r. So under this assumption, we have I over r equal to mu2 over mu1, or we can write down this as mu1 into I equal to mu2 into r. This is our first equation. So from the figure, now we will find the value of I and r, and then we will substitute into the equation number 1. Now for doing that, first we will find the value of I, for which concentrate in the triangle AO and C. If we apply a property of the triangle that the sum of interior angles of a triangle is equal to the opposite exterior, Then in the triangle AOC, alpha and gamma are the interior angles, I is the opposite exterior. So here in triangle AOC, I is equal to alpha plus gamma. Also in triangle AC and I, if we apply the same property, beta and R, they are the interior angles, gamma is the opposite exterior. So we have gamma is equal to R plus beta, or R is equal to gamma minus beta. So here we have value of I and R. If we use these values in equation number 1, we will have mu1 into alpha plus gamma equal to mu2 into gamma minus beta. Again, we have already used the assumption that the angles made by the incident and the refracted light with the principal axis are very small. So in that case, we can use the assumption that alpha angle is almost equal to tan alpha, angle beta is equivalent to tan beta, and angle gamma is equivalent to tan gamma. So using this, above equation is mu1 into tan alpha plus tan gamma is equal to mu2 into tan gamma minus tan beta. Now we will find value of tan alpha, tan beta and tan gamma from the figure and substitute in this equation. So first find the value of tan alpha. From the figure in triangle AMO, we can find tan alpha, which will be AM divided by MO, plus tan gamma. Tan gamma can be found from triangle AMC. So it will be equal to AM over MC, which will be equal to mu2. Tan gamma is again AM over MC minus tan beta. Tan beta can be found from triangle AMI. It will be equal to AM divided by MI. Now both the terms on both the sides of the equation contain AM, which can be cancelled. So we will be left mu1 into 1 over MO plus 1 over MC equal to mu2 1 over MC minus 1 over MI. Now last, because we have already assumed that aperture XY of the surface is very small, so in this case when we draw perpendicular AM on the principal axis, in this case the point P and M, they are very so close to each other that the distance MO is almost same as that of distance PO. Distance MC is almost same as that of PC, and distance MI is almost same as that of PI. So if we use this thing, that MO is equivalent to PU, MC is equivalent to PC, and MI is equivalent to PI, in this case we have above equation mu1 over 1 over PU plus 1 over PC is equal to mu2 1 over PC minus 1 over PI, which we can write mu1 over PU plus mu1 over PC equal to mu2 over PC minus mu2 over PI. Now take this term onto the right side and this term onto the left side. We have mu1 over PU plus mu2 over PI equal to mu2 over PC minus mu1 over PC, which we can write mu2 minus mu1 over PC. Now using the sign conventions, we have to substitute the value of PU, PI and PC. From figure, PO is the objective distance U, PI is the image distance V, PC is the radius of curvature. Now, according to the sign convention, distance measured in the direction of the light, incident light, are to be taken as positive. So you can see that the distance PC and PI, they are in the direction of incident light. Light is traveling from left to right. So PC and PI are also measured in the same direction. So R and V will be taken with positive sign, whereas the object distance U is measured opposite to direction of incident light, so its value will be taken with negative sign. So PO will be equal to minus U, PI will be plus V, and PC will be equal to plus R. So using this, we will have equation mu1 over minus U plus mu2 over V equal to mu2 minus mu1 divided by R. So this is the equation which we were searching for, which connects the refractive index mu1 mu2 with u, v and r. So using this equation, if we are given the position of the object for the spherical surface, then we can find its position of the image, or if image position is given, then we can find the position of the object. If we divide this equation throughout by the refractive index value mu1, if we divide by mu1 value, we will have mu1 over mu1 divided by minus u plus mu2 over mu1 over v equal to mu2 over mu1 minus mu1 over mu1 divided by r, which will be minus 1 by u plus mu by v equal to mu minus 1 over r. So this is our equation number 3, an alternative form of the equation number 2. Equation 2 and 3 is valid when the object is lying in the rarer medium and image is formed is real. But also remember, this relation is equally valid when image formed is virtual in nature. So whenever object is lying in the rarer medium and light is suffering refraction from rarer to denser medium, so whether image is formed real or virtual in nature, equation 2 and 3 will be equally applicable. If the refraction takes place from denser to rarer medium, in that case we will simply interchange the position of mu1 and mu2. So equation 2 will become mu2 over minus u plus mu1 over v equal to mu1 minus mu2 divided by r. This will be fourth equation, or third equation we can write as minus mu over u plus 1 over v equal to 1 minus mu over r. This will be the equivalent fifth equation. Now from equation number 3, the term mu minus 1 over r, we call it as power factor of the spherical surface. It is called so because this term helps us to understand how much convergence in the path of the rays of light will be there by a particular surface of refractive index mu and the radius of curvature r. Using equation 2 and 3, we can also find the first principal focal length and the second principal focal length for the given spherical surface. Now we are finding first focal length. First focal length is actually the distance of a point in front of the convex spherical surface from where the rays of light, after suffering refraction, they will travel parallel to the principal axis. So in this case, if object distance u is actually equal to f1 and rays of light are traveling parallel to principal axis, that means final image will be formed at infinity, so v will become infinity. So using this in the equation number 2, we have minus mu1 over f1 plus 0, because mu2 over infinity will be 0, equal to mu2 minus mu1 over r. If we solve this equation, we get the value of f1 equal to minus mu1 into r divided by mu2 minus mu1. So this is the equation for the first focal length. Second focal length is the point where all the rays of the light, after suffering refraction from the spherical surface, they will converge together. So in this case, if a parallel beam of light is thrown on the convex surface, all the rays of light are going to focus at the point here. So in this case, the final image is formed at this point, and the distance of this point from the spherical surface, we calling it as the second focal length. So in this case, u will be equal to infinity and v will be equal to f2. So using these values in equation 2, we will have mu1 over u is infinity, so first term will be 0, plus mu2 over f2 equal to mu2 minus mu1 divided by r. If we solve this, the value of f2, it will be equal to mu2 r divided by mu2 minus mu1. So you can see that value of first focal length is negative, while that of second focal length is positive. If we divide the value of f2 and f1, then mu2 minus mu1 will get cancelled, r will also get cancelled, so it will be equal to minus mu2 over mu1 with the negative sign. Thank you.